What's up? What's up? Mike D here from A2HH Live. I have a special guest, Mahbod. You know him as the co-founder of a website called Rap Genius, now just called Genius. How are you doing today, Mahbod?
I'm chilling, brother. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Most definitely, and
Way to
and
Atlanta.
yeah, are you out in LA or are you in New York right now?
I'm in LA right now. And then
Okay.
yesterday I made my peace with Snoop Dogg because I realized he put his music back on Spotify. So
Yeah, man, he did that a couple of weeks back, man. We were all happy. We did like a whole show about the fact that Doggy Style got put back on streaming services. Yeah, bumping it all day.
I'm cool with you now, Snoop. Just don't do any more of the NFT bullshit because I get sick of that shit.
What was that? I mean, because I knew that he had the NFT thing going on, but it didn't never seem to really translate. Can you kind of explain what that was or what he was trying to do with that?
I've always hated NFTs. I think I've been into Bitcoin since 2013. The reason I got into Bitcoin is I thought that we could give people Bitcoin for putting up the lyrics on Genius.
Mm.
That was my plan because I asked the CEO if we can give them dollars, and he said no. If you give them dollars, they think that it's work. So on Genius, you get points. You get points called IQ. So I was like, all right, instead of giving people IQ points, maybe we can give them Bitcoin. It's kind of like internet money. Then first came all the shit coins. Basically, shit coin means anything that's a cryptocurrency that's not Bitcoin. It rhymes with Bitcoin, so they call them shit coins.
Right.
Then, and my company, we actually made our own, not Genius, but the company I started after Genius made our own shit coin called IQ. Kind of like on Genius, you get IQ points. We wanted to make IQ cryptocurrency.
Mm.
But then there were NFTs, which were the mother of all shit coins. It's basically like anyone can just make their own worthless coin and sell it to people who think that they're going to make a profit from reselling it. Every rapper, I was trying to get every rapper to get their users to buy Bitcoin. I remember in 2014, both Nas and I were angel investors in Bitcoin, in Coinbase. So I asked Nas, I was like, yo, on Twitter, can you tell your fans that they should buy Bitcoin? And if they buy Bitcoin, it can help Africa. And he was like, I don't even care what Bitcoin is. I don't give a shit about Bitcoin. And it's funny because right now, Nas made more money off of investing in Coinbase than he did from rapping.
Mm.
So I just wasn't getting a lot of love. I tried to get so many rappers on board. They just weren't feeling it. They didn't want to invest. They didn't really understand what it does. But everyone wanted their own NFT. So NFTs really, and then the NFTs that Snoop Dogg got connected with are Bored Apes, which are basically racist. It's weird. These guys made these racist caricature NFTs, and then they got Ben Horowitz, the same guy who invested in Genius, to invest. Then they brought all of these rappers on. It's just twisted.
Well,
So
rewind because I know and a friend of mine, shout out to Brandon out there, we were talking about, the apes and the NFTs, and we're like, where are all these apes coming from? Like, where does that actually originate from? Because, yeah, it does have a odd connotation in the fact that you see a bunch of hip hop artists running around with, NFT apes. Like, where was the origin of that?
it was twisted, especially when you figure out who the guys were who started Bored Apes.
Hmm.
They all seemed like a lot of like 4chan type, casually racist nerds
Mm.
from Miami. It's funny because so the guy I built Genius with, the CEO, obviously I have beef with him. Like I'm suing Genius. He kind of screwed up Genius. But the one thing I give him respect, so he started the NFTs that were making fun of Bored Apes.
Mm.
They were called the Bored Apes are called BAYC. So he started one called RRBAYC, basically calling them out for being racist.
Hmm.
Then Bored Apes sued, and he decided that he's going to backtrack and apologize and everything. So like, for 1 minute, the guy who built Genius had my respect again, but then he lost it again.
We're gonna get into that too, but let's rewind real quick. I know we were just talking about Snoop, talking about Doggy Style. I want to know like what your introduction, to hip hop was, and like, we like starting off the show like that. Like, what was the moment that you fell in love with hip hop? Because I know that you really love hip hop culture.
Yeah, totally. when I was, I mean, the first music that I started getting into, like, you know, spending my allowance money to buy CDs was alternative. I was really into Green Day and Nine Inch Nails. So then one of my friends who was actually white, like skater guy, he's like, oh, you should start listening to alternative rap. Basically, like the biggest one was Dilated Peoples. That was I think the first rappers I ever got into were Dilated Peoples, and then Jurassic 5, Mos Def. I was an early fan of Talib Kweli, which is funny because now I have beef with him. But
everybody has beef with Talib, you know.
Seriously, he's angry. He makes peaceful rap, but he's very angry on Twitter. But then my Persian friends were, you know, back then I was still a nerd. Like all I was doing was school and stuff. But then senior year of high school, my Persian friends started like taking me to clubs and stuff, and they were the ones who were like obsessed with Tupac and Biggie. So that and Tupac, they were already dead, but like 98, 99, that's when I started becoming obsessed with Tupac and Biggie, and that's really what really got me into rap was those two, especially Tupac. Like he was the first rapper who I started memorizing all of his songs. But then what made Genius happen is I went to Yale for college, so I became more East Coast influenced. And the East Coast, I prefer Southern and West Coast rap, but on East Coast you have more of the wordplay. Like for me, the best example of that is Jay-Z. So that's really who inspired Genius. Like it was the East Coast rappers who I was like, you can go through and break this down line by line. And so the rapper who I was obsessed with, who I was explaining his lyrics to the Genius CEO, which inspired him to build Genius, it was Cameron. Everyone at Yale at the time was obsessed with Cameron. He was like considered the most intellectual rapper.
Cameron has those patterns, man, and it's like it's almost like coded language in a sense where you have to really decipher what he's saying. You know, it's funny, and I don't let you continue with your story, but when you're telling that, it kind of mirrors the According to Hip Hop origin story too, because, you know, real quick, According to Hip Hop started, we were like in a restaurant, myself and Maurice, and it started off as a trivia game, right? And so Ghostface is one of my favorite rappers, right? And so he has the kind of lyrics you have to decipher too. And so we were bored. Out of nowhere, I asked Maurice, because I knew he was the only person in the restaurant that would even know what I was talking about. I was like, who shot JJ? And that's a Ghostface lyric where he's like, who shot JJ? Mudbone, same one riding the train, same dude with a name on his jacket. And it stumped him for a minute, and then he got it. And then we just kept coming with question after question. And it's funny how, you know, certain artists' lyrics can spawn these type of ideas. And it turned into one of the biggest websites in, you know, its generation with Genius. That's dope.
Well, Wu-Tang Clan is, I'm not enough of an expert for Wu-Tang Clan. I know that there's a lot that's just going way over my head. But it's funny because the second verified rapper ever on Genius was RZA. And he was breaking it down, but they never got involved as much as I would have liked them. So RZA wanted to get involved. He basically wanted equity. And we wanted him to invest, but he was like, no, give me some for free. And then we couldn't. I was down, but when we couldn't because Nas had invested. So sadly, RZA did not choose to join him. But it could have been great because, yeah, they are. I admit it. Wu-Tang are the most intellectual rappers. They're too good for me. Cameron was the one who I connected with because Cameron's not about like knowing all of this like Brooklyn lore and like Hollywood movies from the 1950s lore and stuff. Cameron is more just like puns and wordplay. I guess you need to know some stuff about Harlem. Also, I mean, the one thing he talks about that's confusing is he's always talking about like his inner circles and stuff. But a lot of Cameron is just puns. It's basically a pun that an average person wouldn't get, but then you could explain it to them and they'd be like, oh shit, that's dope. That's basically what happened with the CEO of Genius. The CEO of Genius wasn't into rap at all. He was the kind of guy who listened to like the Postal Service and like, you know, pop rock. But he wasn't, I didn't get into other rappers really. I only got him into Cameron. He's like,
Wow.
wow, this is on another level.
Do you remember what lyric it was, or what bar, or what song it was that you had to bring
Nah, I
down?
always tell this story because look, it shows that I was not the right guy to start Genius because I was racist at the time. I gave him a racist explanation. I'm very ashamed. It's the lyric is 40 holes in your shirt. They're your own Jamaican clothes. So this was the first. It wasn't the first thing written on the website, but I did write it on the website like this too. I thought it means that like Jamaicans have really ripped up clothes.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying you have 40 holes in your shirt, so it looks like a Jamaican person's shirt. But I didn't know that in Jamaica it's very popular to wear mesh tank tops. So he's talking about the mesh tank top. So oops, I screwed up. But then again, like 3 months after it started, someone was like, yo, you got this wrong. He's not talking about clothes with holes in them. He's talking about the mesh tank tops.
But see, that's the thing with hip hop, though. Like, you know, especially like once you put it out there to the public and with social media, and we do this all the time on our show, we might say the wrong lyric or decipher it the wrong way. And then there's somebody that'll come in there and correct it. And in your case, probably the actual source themselves or somebody close to the source.
Yeah, verified accounts. So verified accounts was my idea.
Okay.
And I took that's the one thing I'm really proud of because that's what Genius is known for these days. And Nas was the first person who had a check mark, but Nas was actually not the first rapper to explain his own lyrics on Genius. The first rapper to explain his own lyrics on Genius was Mike G from Odd Future Wolfgang.
See, now I didn't know that.
Random account, and he started breaking down the Mike G lyrics on the site, and I was like, yo, I think this is Mike G himself. And I told the CEO, was like, no, you're tripping. So I emailed him. I'm like, yo, are you really Mike G? And he's like, yeah, like come to the Odd Future house. He invited me to the Odd Future house, and I met all of Odd Future. And it's funny because no one else in Odd Future ever fucked with Genius. Like they all thought it's kind of like weird and corrupt, but Mike G always had our back. And we met them. I met them really early. Like none of them ever signed up for accounts or anything. But I remember like Tyler the Creator would always like criticize Genius on Twitter, but then his criticisms would still have a Streisand effect. A lot of people would like figure out what it is from him talking shit. So
no, what were some of the criticisms? What were some of the criticisms of Genius?
The CEO's white. The guys who run it don't really know that much about rap. I mean, they're valid criticisms. That it's slave labor. Everyone is working for free, which that's the reason why I wanted them to get paid in Bitcoin. So I agree, Tyler. I've got your back, but I was trying to do the best I can.
Well, I know at the time, and I do remember the first time that I think Nas posted something. I feel like this is around the Life is Good time. This is how far me and Mahbod go back. I think it was on Life is Good time because I think it was, what song was that? Anyway, Nas posted you guys' website and you crashed. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm, of course, yeah. The song was Nas the Don.
That's it, the Don,
Nas the Don, which probably no one else listens to, but I still listen to it.
Yeah. So I remember when that happened and everything crashed, and I was like, oh yeah, they blowing up right now. You know what I'm saying? What was I gonna say though? I was it was piggybacking off of, you know, some of those criticisms. You were telling me some things offline about, I guess, the current status of, I guess, the leadership over at Genius, and you had some opinions on that. I mean, could you elaborate on some of that?
It's getting worse and worse. I'm suing Genius right now. I'm trying to at least get like a drop of juice from this rock, squeezing the rock for some juice. But Genius basically became worthless. Google started stealing Genius's lyrics. Genius proved that Google's stealing our lyrics because we made the commas. We made the commas in the lyrics have a special code, so we could prove that they're stealing them from us. It was on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I'm like, all right, we're going to destroy Google. And then later I found out Google had wanted to buy Genius for $750 million. So I would be a multi-millionaire right now. Instead I don't have shit. But the CEO, I guess he was like sniffing on the yayo. He turned down the 750. He decided to sue Google. And now so it's crazy because the Genius versus Google, so Google won the case, but we appealed, and then the Genius versus Google case is actually going to the Supreme Court. So that's going to be really crazy. But all of the lawsuits and stuff, and meanwhile, Google stole all our lyrics. So like Genius's traffic went down the toilet. It went from like the 100th biggest site to like the 1,000th biggest site. Not even close.
Because Google kind of controls that traffic,
running out of money, and they were forced to sell it to this guy who I was telling you about. His dad started the cartoon Inspector Gadget. So he uses daddy's money to buy hip-hop websites and destroy them. He destroyed World Star. He destroyed DatPiff. They straight up shut down DatPiff after he bought it.
That happened a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
And DatPiff is, at least I know when we reported on it, DatPiff was claiming that wasn't the case, but everybody couldn't really get to their app. They couldn't open their app. So that is what happened.
The thing is, no one was even using DatPiff anymore because like who needs mixtapes? And like that doesn't even mean anything. But the point is, this guy who bought it, he had no plan. I think he knew that DatPiff's service isn't good. He basically bought it for the name. Because when people hear DatPiff, they're like, oh, that's like the OG hip hop. So I think he was going to make it into like a more complicated website, but then he doesn't know how to do anything. He's not even rich. The only reason he's rich is because his daddy is rich.
Yeah.
He just buys these things for the ego trip and destroys them. And that's what he's doing to Genius. Like, Genius was already shitty under the old CEO, who I started it with. I wrote an article saying that the CEO of Genius should be black and that he should step down. A lot of people got kind of pissed off about that. But then now he sold it to this guy who doesn't even care. At least the old CEO of Genius built Genius. Like, I have a lot of criticisms of him, but he straight up built Genius with his own two hands. And you don't see a lot of websites like that.
Oh, so he was the programmer.
He's a nerd. Yeah, that's the only good thing about him.
Well, what I was gonna say too, because to piggyback on that, I know you were talking about, or I know Genius early on, it was about annotations, and it was outside of, just rap. That's why you guys changed from Rap Genius to Genius. What happened to those initiatives to actually, break down legal documents and expand that annotation, just universe?
It basically all got shut down when I left. And I think part of that was my fault. Like I got the non-music annotations into some trouble by like causing drama. But also it's because the community. So to be honest, I think the main reason why those other stuff didn't work is because of the slave labor model. The only reason Genius can get by with doing slave labor for lyrics is because people love music so much that these teenagers are willing to put up, the new 21 Savage lyrics or whoever they're obsessed with for free.
It's fun.
Yeah. But other stuff people are not willing to do for free. Even low-key, even lyrics people don't want to do for free because we had so many volunteers complain. And I tried to figure out, I even asked the CEO if we can send people T-shirts. It's like, yo, when people get 100,000 IQ, can we send them a T-shirt? And he said, no, if we send them a T-shirt, then they're going to be like, why are you only sending me a T-shirt? Why don't you send me more? And this was all Mark Zuckerberg's fault. So when Google came out, Google wanted to pay people for using the internet. And Mark Zuckerberg said, if you pay people for using the internet, it feels like work. Instead, you have to make it feel like a game. You have to like have statistics for them to keep up with, like how many likes my post got, things like that. But I think he's wrong. I think, again, it's no accident. Mark Zuckerberg's dad is really rich too, just like the guy who bought Genius. So he thinks that because his dad is rich, everyone's dad is rich. So they're like, yo, I have a rich dad. I don't need $5. But it's like someone else who doesn't have a rich dad, they might really need $5, especially if you're a teenager. When I was 13 years old, or 14, 15, 16, I applied to every job. I applied to the Gap, I applied to Starbucks, I applied to Barnes & Noble. No one was giving me a job. If I could just make like $10 a week putting up lyrics on Genius, I'd be on it all day.
Well, who do you think would be a good fit for that seat as CEO of Genius?
Well, in the article, I suggested Kanye. But now I guess Kanye's got bigger. Then again, Kanye got canceled. So now maybe he'll come back to being CEO of Genius. But the crazy thing is, so Kanye never got a verified account on Genius, even though we begged him to. But it was because he was like, I don't want to be the rapper. I want to be the person who builds this website. So after we asked him to get a verified account, instead, Kanye just randomly emailed us a redesign of the homepage.
Wow.
Which basically is what we use now. Kanye was one of the first people to be like, stop trying to do the other stuff. Go back to only doing rap. So he basically got his way.
So you're saying that the current layout of the website is something that Kanye put forth?
If you go on my Instagram, I shared the exact design that Kanye sent to us.
Wow. And you know, people get on me all the time on this show because Coop and I, we do A2HH Live like every Wednesday and Friday, and we interact with the fans. And I'm always, even with all of the stuff going on with Ye, I'm always the person that seems like I'm caping for Kanye. He's a creative genius. Like, he sets the foundation. I actually had to get in the back and forth with another podcaster about the fact that I feel like in the 2000s, as great as Jay-Z is, Kanye really rode him to success in the 2000s. If you look at Jay's big moments in the 2000s and beyond, Kanye's involved. And for you to even say that part of it, it's like, this dude is an architect, man. It's incredible. Yeah, I think that's a perfect pick, by the way, you know.
Kanye's all over the place. I get into trouble because I'm not his biggest fan as a rapper. Mm-hmm. One time I made a top 50 rappers list and I put Kanye as 49. Low-key, I didn't even want to put him as 49, but I was like, well, I got to put him on the list. And then people got so mad. They're like, how's Kanye number 49? I'm like, oh, he's not a rapper. He's just a genius. He's his own thing. He's Kanye, you know?
Right. I mean, he's the full package. Like, he's a creative, you know what I mean? But see, on a producer's list, because a lot of people feel like that. And we've had that discussion on the show, too. A lot of people feel like it's tough to put Kanye at the top of a rapper's list because bar for bar, you know, you might not think that he could, you know, stick with the people who are, you know, the Tupac Bigs, Jay-Z's, Rakims of the world. But when you look at his overall package, you look at his overall album to album, production value, he kind of stands alone. But he's definitely a top 5 producer at least, right?
He's just Kanye. Kanye is like no one else. I mean, one thing I really like about Kanye is that he's a troll and that he gets canceled. So,
well, I mean, some of the things that you say you were getting in, you know, trouble for, or got, you know, the company in trouble for, in my personal opinion, those were some of the things that got Rap Genius popping early. And, you know, you and I linked because you were the one out there, you know what I'm saying, stirring up shit. Very Kanye West-like in that way, too. Like, people can say whatever they want about Ye, but the fact that he stirs up shit makes you pay attention to the greatness. And, I mean, again, you kind of got to take the quote-unquote good with the bad, but, yeah, I don't know if Rap Genius would have gotten to the point that it got to if you weren't, you know, shaking up shit during that time period.
God bless you, brother. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It kind of sucks that I didn't get shit for doing it, but one thing that puts a smile on my face, literally every little kid I ever meet, they all know Genius. It's insane. A lot of people my age might not know it, but everyone younger knows it. And I'm someone who thinks that I respect the youth more than the elderly. So,
I mean, the youth of the future. I mean, and speaking of the future, like, where do you see, you know, because we're talking about monetization and, you know, some of the, I guess, roadblocks that you guys hit with the slave labor, quote unquote. Where do you see, like, the monetization in hip hop and the music industry moving forward, period?
So I have a vision. I don't know how it's going to be done, but so on Genius, I got pissed about the slave labor. And then the second company I started was called Everpedia. It's like Wikipedia without the slave labor. Because Wikipedia's slave labor pisses me off even more than Genius's. Because at least on Genius, the slave labor is kind of fun, putting up lyrics. But on Wikipedia, they expect you to do actual hard work for free. And they lie to their users. They say it's a nonprofit. Wikipedia is not a nonprofit. Wikipedia is part of Google. Google lies and hides the fact that it's part of them. So that pisses me off. But my vision is, I mean, forget about Wikipedia, forget about Genius. Let's go back to the origins. Let's go back to Facebook and Instagram. I think Facebook and Instagram should give 80% of the money they make back to the users. And not just the creators, but also just for scrolling the site. I think every time you see an ad, 80% of the money they got from the ad should go to you. And they keep 20%. So that's my vision. And I tried to start Hella Doge, where you get the 80% in Dogecoin, because I thought cryptocurrency makes stuff fun. But that's when I started to realize, this was in 2021, I started to realize cryptocurrency is kind of turning into a bad look. Everyone just thinks it's a scam. And the reason they think that is because of these stupid NFTs and all this bullshit. So I shut down Hella Doge, and now I want to build something called Communistagram. I'm looking for someone to build it. But Communistagram, just straight up, it would be Instagram, but you connect your Venmo, and you're just getting paid for using it.
And you think that as far as, I guess, artists and music, you think that they'll be able to connect with that too? Because that seems like a big problem with artists as well.
Make it so that everyone can automatically get paid for creating content. If I make a funny post on Instagram, I get paid. If you make a viral song on Spotify, you get paid. And all of these websites should be doing, they should be collecting 20% commission for keeping it up and running. That's not how it is right now. They've started to pay people, like, you know, TikTok pays creators way more than Instagram does. So Instagram got kind of threatened. They're okay, we're going to start paying creators more too. But for me, it's not about how much you pay. That's the problem with capitalism. In capitalism, the boss decides how much you get paid. And that pisses me off. I think that the boss should always give you 80%. And, you know, the boss is organizing stuff, so they get to keep 20% commission. That's how Uber was when it started. Uber, when it started, they said, okay, we're going to give 80% of the fare to the driver, and we keep 20% because we're running the app. But then they got corrupted. Then they decided they're only going to pay the drivers as much as they have to pay them.
I was going to say that what you're talking about sounds like a DoorDash model, sounds like, you know, all of the models that we see from, you know, rideshare services. And yeah, why can't that be applied, you know, through internet usage?
Yeah, I think if everything on the internet goes like that, we can end poverty. No one will ever be hungry. No one will be homeless. And then the craziest thing is you start earning at age 13. And I remember when I was a teenager, that's when I needed money the most, and no one could even hire me. I was willing to work for it, but no one would hire me.
How old were you when you started working, and like, what was your first job like?
I've never honestly had a job. I guess my first job was after law school. I got the law firm situation that everyone gets, and it was right when the economy had crashed in 2009. So for 6 months, I was just like tiptoeing around the office, praying I don't get fired. And then they ended up basically just giving us some money to go away. And that's kind of what led to me being able to start Genius.
Well, you know, I know we're jumping around here, but you mentioned law school. As a legal professional, maybe if you're not practicing right now, what's your opinion on this whole thing about, you know, lyrics being used in court, rap lyrics?
That's a very interesting. It's definitely racist. There's no chance in hell that they would use country lyrics or pop lyrics the same way that they use rap lyrics. So it's problematic. But then again, if you've got one rap song that like the whole thing is just code, like that's what happened with Bobby Shmurda, right? There were a lot of codes in the song. The song is playing all over the radio, but there are codes that maybe only like a handful of people in his gang understand.
Right. And as you said earlier, lyrics can be misinterpreted. I'd say
throw it all out. I think throw it all out. It causes too many problems, too much drama. So, like, you know, in Bobby Shmurda's case, maybe it opens some doors. Right. Even when it opens doors. All right, someone is involved in like racketeering or organized. That's no different. If you're a real capitalist, sometimes you think of organized crime as a business,
And then
especially drugs.
you gotta ask yourself, like, how far up does something like this go? Because again, you have a distributor, you have a record label. Sometimes you have management. Everybody has to sign off on these records. So it's like, is that part of a RICO too? I mean, I only say that because of the YSL thing. You know what I mean?
RICO is just I still don't even understand 100% what they're charging you, but it seems like it's just like the thought police. They're like, oh, we don't have anything on you. We say RICO. Basically, it means we think you inspired other people to do bad stuff.
Right.
So that's why, I mean, the most messed up, there have been a lot of cases of injustice against rappers, but nothing is as bad as Young Thug. And I actually just had his boy text me. Rome Fortune is in LA. We're supposed to kick it this week. He's very close with Young Thug. He was like telling me all from the inside, like Young Thug did nothing wrong. Yeah. What the people who did wrong are people who are part of Young Thug's crew. And I get in capitalism, it's kind of like that. Like sometimes if a company gets fucked, like even if the CEO didn't have anything to do with it, the CEO has to step down. But the difference is the CEO rarely goes to jail. I would understand if like Young Thug has to pay a penalty or something, but I think it's weird to put someone in jail because they're like someone else who you inspired did something bad. It's like, okay, so then put that person in jail. Don't put me in jail.
The other weird legal thing that I know we covered on our show a while back when it happened to me was that, Travis Scott Astro World thing, Astro Fest. And my thing was he was getting thrown under the bus, for the tragic events that happened, but he's the performer. Like, he's up there. You've been to festivals. I've been to festivals. That person on stage, especially with that sea of people out there, he can't see what's going on. Like, I think he got treated unfairly throughout that whole, ordeal.
I agree 100%. I think the reason why the trolls were going full force on him is because he's married to a Jenner. Mm. And I wish he hadn't done that. I wish Kanye and Travis, why did they? It reminds me of, some people think that Yoko Ono screwed up the Beatles' sound.
Yeah. You know what? That's a very good correlation. I was actually going to bring that around to, the metaverse performances and stuff. Like, do you think that, what happened at Astro World Fest opens up the door for people to accept, I guess virtual performances? Like, they had a Biggie metaverse performance on Facebook. Like, what are your thoughts on, I guess, hip-hop performances and possibly festivals moving in that direction with technology?
During quarantine, I wanted to start a company. I wanted to start the online concert company. And I even got Bass God to agree to be a co-founder. So that was my chance to start a company with Bass God. But the guy who was supposed to build it never built it. Then Genius built something called Genius Live, which was basically what I wanted to build. And then no one uses Genius Live. All of these were a flop. No one wants to pay $20 to sit at their computer. So I don't think it would have gone anywhere. Although it was a cool idea. Like during quarantine, I was like, yeah, this is what we got to do. We need to make online concerts fun. And Genius Live is not the worst product. Genius Live kind of makes it into a game. No one is. You probably haven't even heard of it. But if you Google search Genius Live, like it's $10 to watch the concert. It's $50 to ask a question from the rapper after the concert. They have just like little tiers. Like you can buy virtual merchandise at the concert and stuff. But no one's really into it. Maybe speaking of Travis Scott, I think the only interesting online concert was when Travis Scott did a concert in Fortnite.
Yeah. And that's why it's interesting, because that happened right before the Astrofest thing. That's why I thought it was interesting that happened directly after. It's like, do they want, Travis to be pushed back into the virtual space? Because I'm sure if I was him, after experiencing something like that, I'm like, man, I'm about to do some Fortnite concerts, man. Like, you know what I mean?
Don't you open up that window. Yeah, Travis is the man. I've never met him, but I have tremendous respect. I hope he gets a divorce. I was at probably like my 15 minutes of fame was I was at Kanye and Kim's engagement party. And I was on TV, I was on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and I was gonna sue Genius for that. They forced me to go to that even though I had gotten brain surgery 3 weeks later, 3 weeks before. So if you watch that episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashian, it's like it's me, it's Kim, and then there's my swollen ass head. Like half of my head is swollen to like the size of the rest of my head.
And they made you go out there. They made you go out there in those conditions.
In San Francisco, yeah, they made me get on a plane. I remember Ben Horowitz. We went to Kanye's concert, and Ben Horowitz was drunk. He kept on like slapping my head to the beat.
God.
I'm like, bro, I was gonna sue them for that, but for some reason back then I still didn't have the courage to sue. I got a lawyer who was down to sue them for working me too hard right after my brain surgery. But then I said, no, I don't want to do it. But I regret it. I should have sued them so I could have gotten some money. Man. But at the time, I remember just being like, Kanye, why are you doing this? The guy that made me most depressed was Jonathan Chabon, who's like Kim's weird friend. And he kept screaming. He's like, you guys, you're making Kanye uncomfortable. And I was like, wow, like, how am I watching the greatest rapper be surrounded by all of these like, like trailer park people? Also, I hated Yeezus. I remember, my brain, my swollen head pounding. They kept making me listen to Yeezus, like so dark and dissonant. I was like, what the fuck is this? I still hate Yeezus. Like
Yeezus is interesting, man. Yeah, I mean, Yeezus is a weird album in a sense where I'm with you. I never really got into it, but the people who love it love that album. Like people will sit there and tell you it's a classic.
Yeezus is the Bible, and it's like, what the fuck? But I guess it's because it's unusual. So shouts out to Kanye. I mean, that's the thing. If you're a fan of early Kanye, it becomes really hard to become a fan of late Kanye's music. But then that's the same as Picasso. Picasso kept completely changing his artistic style because people told him, if you do this, you're going to fail. They said, like, an artist can only be successful if they have one style. So Picasso was like, okay, then fuck you. I'm going to have 5 different styles.
And what people got to understand about Kanye as well, never met him, but, been a fan since, he came through at College Dropout. I mean, even before then, just as a producer. He does everything that people told him that he couldn't do because he believes in it. And if he were to listen to people, he wouldn't even be a rapper right now. He would just be a producer that may have fizzled out. So once that worked, and I'm sure other things too, he's like, fuck what people say and think. I'm going to do what I believe.
You invite him on the According to Hip Hop podcast. She's doing Alex Jones. Come on, yeah.
I would love to interview Ye, man. Ye, I think Ye is a very interesting individual. He says what he feels, whether you agree with it or not. And it's interesting that you gravitate to him and Tupac because I feel, and I know I always get brutally beaten for this, I feel like he is the closest thing that mainstream hip-hop and probably mainstream music has to Tupac as far as being vocal and being honest, whether you agree with him or not,
That's a very interesting interpretation. I don't know. I mean, the difference is Kanye, I still think of as human. I think of someone who he's irascible, he's lovable, like, you can't ignore him. But Tupac, I think of more of as a god.
Yeah, Pac was different. I mean, I know you're originally from the West Coast, right?
I'm from LA, and there's no other rapper that even comes close to Tupac for me. A distant second is Biggie. But I still don't think you can compare Biggie and Tupac. Also, because Tupac, so this is one thing that Kanye and Tupac have in common is that they're multifaceted. One thing a lot of people don't know, Tupac made way, way more money from Hollywood than he made from music.
Yep.
That's why when Biggie died, he was worth like $10 million. When Tupac died, he was worth $100 million. And all of that, it's because Tupac had made all of his money from Hollywood.
Yep. And Kanye, fashion, right? And yeah, what's another similarity? I mean, even with their parents or their mothers be Black Panthers and being involved with that party, like they're very rounded in as far as their experience goes, and the way that they execute it, through their music. I know back in the day they would kind of knock Pac for making like a how do you want it, and then making a keep your head up. They would say it's hypocritical, but looking back on it, it's like, nah, he's just a balanced human being. And a lot of rappers don't do that. You're either in a certain lane and you run with that lane, or you just go the other way. Like the conscious rappers was making conscious stuff, the party rappers was making party stuff. Pac was doing all of it.
It's true. It's true. And that, yeah, I never thought about it. There are uncanny similarities to Kanye and Pac.
Because Kanye can do the same thing. Like Kanye can make a heartfelt record, and he can also make a Can't Tell Me Nothing. He can make a banger. He can jump on I Don't Like.
The difference is, though, I worship Tupac, whereas I don't, like, how can you worship Kanye West? That's the whole point of Kanye, is that you don't worship him. Like,
Right.
How can you worship a guy who goes on Instagram and says, oh, I just watched Jonah Hill's movie. It made me love Jewish people.
Right.
He's just not, just like, I wouldn't want anyone to worship me. I think Kanye is more like me than like Tupac, because he's a troll. Tupac's not a troll. Tupac was never trying to make people laugh. Tupac
you're right.
was trying to make the fucking hairs on your arms stand on their ends.
You're right.
But Kanye is more chill. I think he's in some ways he's actually very relaxed. I think he's very conscious of the fact that a lot, like his Instagram post, I think he was just putting that up for laughs.
I think he tries to do things to make, he knows what is going to hit a nerve. And I think he tries to continuously hit that nerve. But yeah, you're right. With all of that being said, who would you say are your top 5 MCs then? I know you got Tupac at number 1.
The people who have played big roles in my life, can I put 6?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's basically 6 rappers when I think of like why am I into rap. So Tupac's the most important. He's basically like, he's a god to me. I think that he never did anything bad. I'm always pointing out to people he's one of the only major rappers with 0 misogynistic lyrics. So ahead of his time, just amazing. By far the best. Then Biggie, second best, just because of so much talent. But then it's held back by the fact that he's not healthy. Then my 2 personal favorites, Cameron. Cameron, I think, in some ways the smartest rapper, and he kind of played a big role in my life. And my personal favorite living rapper is Gucci Mane. I've gotten to hang with him a lot of times. He's like the most amazing. And then, Atlanta is really where hip hop is all from. So really Gucci Mane should be number 1 in that list, because I think he's the best Atlanta rapper.
He's put a lot of people on too. And, he has a catalog of 100 albums.
I'm waiting for it to stop being hot. I remember when he got out of jail, I'm like, all right, he's not going to make any more good albums. And then the Everpedia team, they were nonstop bumping East Atlanta Santa in the office. It was like amazing. So,
do you have a Gucci Mane story?
I have to mention Nas was the investor in my company, so obviously shouts out to Nas. But then the reason why I asked for number 6, I can't say Nas and not say Jay-Z.
Yeah. Well, both of those guys have put together a great catalog of music. Nas is, Nas had a lot to do indirectly. Well, I won't say indirectly, but, with a lot of our growth, because this run that him and Hit Boy are on with the KD series and Magic, a lot of our followers on YouTube specifically have gravitated to the channel because, of the great work that they're putting out. Hit Boy even pulled up and did an interview with us a couple of weeks back. And shout out to Hit Boy. They're doing great work over there. Do you have a Gucci Mane story, though? It sounds like, you have fond memories of Gucci Mane and his work ethic.
Gucci Mane never really got involved with Genius. He got a verified account but didn't use it much. But one time I got to meet him and we talked in great length about Genius. It was cool because I got to meet my favorite rapper. The funny thing is when I met him, we didn't have internet. So he explained a bunch of his lyrics to me.
Mm.
And then I went back home and I put them on Genius with using Gucci Mane's account. I had like God mode, so I was able to sign into Gucci Mane's account. So I just, word for word, I wrote the explanations he told me to Genius.
Oh, that's dope.
But then the staff of Genius got mad at me. The staff of Genius was like, no, you're not allowed to just put up what Gucci Mane told you and say that Gucci Mane said it. If Gucci Mane wants to write these, he has to come and type it in his own account himself.
Really? But he gave you the clearance to do it, right?
Oh, yeah, Gucci was so. But then that was kind of the start of the Genius staff turning against me. And eventually they were not having it. Like you were a fan of all of my antics. Thank you, but a lot of people were not.
I mean, we understood what it was.
Nas was like always like, "Who is this Joker?" You know.
I mean, we understood what it was, man. Like, you weren't being serious. It was, again, it's all fun, and you want a hip hop company or a hip hop outlet to be fun, especially when you're asking for people to be engaging and go in there and do the work.
Some people didn't want it to be fun. Some people thought it should just be pure facts. Like if you look at Genius nowadays, they deleted a lot of the fun stuff. A lot of the jokes are gone.
Do you feel like
staff just wanted to be pure facts? Not everyone has a sense of humor.
Do you feel like it started off as fun though, and then it turned into, once certain entities got involved, it was just work?
I think the CEO and I had a different vision from day one. Like on day one, I didn't want it to be facts at all. I wanted it to be mainly just jokes. And I thought it was basically going to be like white people explaining rap. I didn't think it was going to be like an encyclopedia of hip hop. My dream was to make a coffee table book, because there had been a blog called Stuff White People Like, and they made a coffee table book out of it, and it was a New York Times bestseller. I thought we're going to do stuff like that. I thought like we're going to explain these Cameron and Jay-Z songs as if like a Yale professor is explaining it. Like, here he begins to exhibit the denouement, like try to use like literary devices and stuff. But a lot of people did not feel that way, especially Nas. Nas was one person, he kind of shaped. Nas was one of our first investors. Like he invested before Ben Horowitz did. And the reason why he invested, he was kind of like, we need to make this into a rap encyclopedia.
And that's what it's become. I mean, I know when I come across you guys' content, or I don't want to say you guys, but the Genius content now, it's more of like, interviews, performances. Do they still have a lot of the annotation? Is that very heavy still, or is it more so a media type of company?
Verified YouTube, that was mainly the brainchild of Rob Markman. Rob Markman, I mean, he probably did more to make Genius blow up than anyone. And he's basically the person who was replacing me after I left.
I feel like he's kind of become the face of Genius, because when people think of Genius, I mean, I'm sure his face is the first one that, people think of.
Shouts out to Rob. I mean, he made it famous. But then again, what he built is not the same thing that was the vision. He basically turned Genius into a YouTube channel. Into a TV show. A lot of people these days don't even know that Genius is a website. A lot of people only think that it's the videos. And one thing that I don't like about the videos are called verified. One thing I don't like about the verified videos, a lot of times they don't actually give you any information. A lot of times, like the line is like, I love to eat spaghetti. And then it goes to the rapper. The rapper's like, oh my God, I love spaghetti. It's so good. I can't eat enough spaghetti. Oh wow, this is some deep lyrical. Like I mean, there's some stuff people make fun of Genius Verified for. Like Blueface was on there, and Blueface, like he's explaining Blueface lyrics. So there's nothing.
I remember that, I think. Do you think some of that's more clickbait, trying to go viral type of stuff? Because yeah, it does seem like there's literal things that are being asked to be explained. I think I saw one with 21 Savage. It was very literal. I don't remember the exact bar, but do you think that's more of a, you know, you think that's more of a clickbait thing, and do you think that is, pushing it away from what the brand is supposed to be?
It's not intellectual. It's
Yeah.
dumbing it down, and it has nothing to do with the original vision of genius. I think one of the only reasons why people love the Genius videos so much is that they're weird. Like, so first of all, there's no interviewer. The rapper is just looking straight at the camera.
Hmm.
Second of all, what's with the intro music? Like the intro music is like some 1950s, like not even like 1940s jazz music or whatever. So I think it's like supposed to like draw attention to the fact it's like, hey, like the rapper is here to explain it to white people. So I'm not. The one thing that's smart is having the yellow in the back. And I've seen so many rappers who interview themselves with yellow in the back and pretend that it's Genius who interviewed them. Like they weren't actually interviewed by Genius. They're making it up.
Now, where did the color scheme come from? I mean, do you remember that or?
The only thing I remember about the color scheme, so Tom, the CEO, built Genius overnight. It took him 24 hours to build it.
Jeez.
And as soon as he built it, I was like, why is it black? The original version of Genius, the screen was black and the text was white.
Hmm.
He said, oh, this is easier for your eyes. It's easier for your eyes this way. Now Genius changed. So the rule is when it's black, it's better for your eyes, but people click less on ads. That's why most websites, the background is white or light color.
That makes
but
sense.
then again, like now some websites, like I think Facebook now lets you put it in dark mode. So that's cool.
I mean, has Chat GBT, do you think that has kind of gotten in the way of the annotation thing, or is that just a whole different space?
That would be interesting. I've never seen anyone talk about ChatGPT doing Genius annotations. I know that the Genius CEO is now obsessed with ChatGPT. That's all he talks about on Twitter.
Mm.
I don't think ChatGPT is all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think people are giving it way more credit than like everyone right now is talking about this fake Drake and Weeknd song.
I was gonna ask you about
it. Sounds like basically all of Drake's radio songs, which I'll admit, like every time I hear a Drake radio song, I'm like, all right, it's another Drake song. And it's good. They're not bad. They sound similar. It sounds like one of those. It's actually kind of good, but the computer is not going to be able to constantly roll these out. All of them are going to start just sounding the same. All it can really do is just do a caricature of Drake.
Right.
That's literally all it's doing. It's a large language model. So it's just basically combining all of Drake's language in his songs and try to put it into one.
Exactly. And, the one thing about AI and everybody being, bent out of shape about it, AI can't really do the human level of rhythm and rhythmic patterns and things like that. I mean, what's your thought on, I guess, do you think this is just something that's going to come and go? This whole story about everybody tripping about AI and.
I think it's a nothing burger. Microsoft basically bought them for $60 billion. Mm-hmm. If you told me I could invest in it at $1 billion valuation, I'd say no.
Mm. What do you think is the future for hip hop? And maybe you might not want to say it right here in front of everybody.
I'd love to say it's on Instagram.
Okay.
So Steve Stout, who was on Genius's board, he said he's going to build like a new like high-tech record label. But I don't know what happened. I think Apple bought it, and then Apple just shut it down or whatever.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. What was the name of that company?
When he did that, I said Steve Stout should call it Genius Records. And basically what that would be, I think the whole music industry is evil. I hate the labels. I hate the publishers. Low-key, I even hate the managers. Because some of the managers, they really have their artists back. But other times, I feel like the managers are just, they trick the artists.
I had an interview with Kwame back a few years back, and he gave me a perspective as an artist, as somebody who's been in here forever. He gave me a perspective I never thought of. We were talking about entertainment attorneys. And he was like, the entertainment attorneys pretty much work for the labels because you're just one act. They want to be in good with the label so they can continue to have clients. So it's like, how does the artist find, like you said, management or, entertainment attorneys that they can actually trust when their career is basically in the balance of working with the big companies because they're always going to have to deal with the big companies.
Exactly. The same thing happened to Genius. When Genius started getting into all of the lyrics drama, we hired this guy, Alan Grubman. He's like the godfather of music industry law. And then we found out the guy who we're paying is not representing us. He's representing the big boys.
Mm.
That sucked. Yeah, I'm supposed to kick it with Rome Fortune. He's in LA right now, and he's you should have him on your show. He was in 2015, right when I left Genius, he was at the top. He was getting all of the Genius lyric stuff, and then we've been talking about how he had record contracts that he turned down. And then a lot of the music big guys kind of got mad at him for not wanting to play their game. But it's because he's not like that. You know, like another example of a rapper like that is Currency. Mm-hmm. Currency's always bragging. He's like, if I had taken a label, I could have been bigger than Jay-Z. But instead I didn't. And I, maybe 1% of the people who would have heard my music have heard it, but I've still made a lot of money because at least I get all of the money.
He has a very loyal following too. That's the thing. Like, you got to look at the fact that his fans are always going to rock with anything that he does, any shows he does, any albums he puts out. But when you go super mainstream, they could be with you one day and just totally out with you the next. And yeah, his career has been incredible, I think.
Yeah, the cool thing is Rome Fortune is also all over the place. Like at this point, he's also working on startups and art and design and all this kind of. He's kind of like the Kanye of Atlanta. So
Rome Fortune got to come on the show, man. It'll be fun.
I'm gonna. Yeah, he literally as soon as we started talking, he texted me. I'm like, oh shit, I'm on the HipHop podcast. I'm getting texted from major rappers.
You back in the game, man. Welcome back to hip hop. Who are you listening to right now?
Who do I like? 21 Savage. I thought the Drake and 21 Savage album was quite strong.
I'm gonna say something that you probably don't even know. Like, we've been Facebook friends since, I don't even know how long. But the first time I heard or saw the video for Chief Keef's I Don't Like, you posted it on your page and I saw it on my timeline. And I was like, because you said something like, this is the future, this is next. And I clicked that. I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was game changing. So yeah, I want to know what you're listening to.
Chief Keef fan, but again, I think he's an interesting fellow. So the interesting thing about Chief Keef is he's a Chicago rapper, but it seems to me like his style is very Southern.
Yeah. Well, see, I think that's what the internet has created. It's like everybody has influences from everywhere. Like, I think we first saw that with ASAP Mob. I'm like, these guys from Harlem, they sound like they're from Texas.
Yeah, they did that. And for me, the most interesting one is Gucci Mane was obviously hot in Atlanta, but he really went viral in the Bay Area.
Interesting.
When the song Pills came out, a lot of people were like, wow, this is a good rapper for if you're on Molly or on shrooms. So he became very popular in the Bay Area.
I remember interviewing an artist, up-and-coming artist from Queens. This was like early on, man. And he told me that one of his biggest influences was Gucci Mane. And I was like, really? How? And I thought about it, and Miss Deb, who was managing Gucci at the time, was from Queens. So I was like, oh. And he said, yeah, they had a huge push over there, too. So I guess the Gucci push was coast to coast, man.
Yeah, I was friends with, I told you, Mike G was the first verified musician. And I became friends with him. He actually threw his birthday party at the Rap Genius house. And it was funny, like all of Odd Future came and whatnot, but then it was his choice. He said that he only wants Future and Gucci Mane to be played at the party. So the Odd Future party didn't have any Odd Future. It only had Future and Gucci Mane.
Hey, that's dope, man. And they got such an extensive catalog. You could play Future and Gucci all night and not be tired of it. All right. Well, I know you probably got to run, but I want to ask you like your top five hip hop albums, and then want to see if you want to leave us with anything.
I guess Machiavelli, Illmatic, Purple Haze, Ready to Die, and Sosa mixtape.
Ah, that's a good one.
Okay, I should probably put more thought into that. One of the, I was struggling when you said what kind of rap. Like, I think rap in general has evolved. Like, the people who I listen to these days, I don't even know if you can call it rap. Like, in some ways, I feel like is Frank Ocean a rapper? Like,
he started. I feel like he started out as one and kind of turned into more of a vocalist, or I guess as they would call it, melodic rap. Because I mean, they even got a whole category at the Grammys now, best melodic hip hop song or whatever. So I think there's a lot of blurred lines there. I have that same confusion with like Roddy Ricch. I'm like, is he a rapper?
Yeah, it's getting blurred, especially with a lot of the more auto-tune sound rapping, which to some extent Future inspired, but it's always been going back. Like, a lot of people say Kid Cudi started all of this, but if you go back even further, like, what about Bone Thugs? Bone Thugs were singing and rapping. What about Nate Dogg?
Yeah,
who was one of my favorites growing up.
Nate Dogg had the hook game on lock, but as far as Bone, man, we ain't heard nothing like that, where it was like guys were literally harmonizing, flowing, and rapping. That was kind of the first time I ever remember, like, artists or rappers like doing like what is it, compounding their voice, you know what I'm saying, where it was like you could hear another layer under their vocals. What is it, overdubs? Yeah. And Bone did that a lot, and I was like, I'd never heard anything like that as a kid. I was like, yeah, these guys are different.
The last time I talked to Crazy Bone, I was actually on his podcast, and he was talking to me about their negotiation of selling all their music. You know how all the musicians are selling all their music? Like Lil Wayne sold his for, I think, $150.
Future just sold his for $80, I believe. I just read that Manny Fresh sold his as well. What do you think all that's about?
I think it's good. I think it's a good idea to just take the money and run, and whatever. Let the investment bank try to squeeze as much out of their music of your music as they can. They're just trying to keep it alive.
Right.
Hopefully they're not going to hate with your artistry. So yeah, Crazy Bone was telling Bone Thugs got offered a lot. I want to say like $200 million.
Oh wow.
Obviously they have to split it, but still.
Oh no, that's great. I mean,
I don't know if you took it, but I was like, yeah.
Crazy Bone was actually one of my favorite rappers growing up. It was Method Man, Crazy Bone. I think it was Andre from Outkast. Those are like some of my favorites growing up. But yeah.
Well, when I was on Crazy Bone's show, I told him that my favorite Bone Thugs was Busy Bone. I think he gets too happy about that because Busy Bone's the renegade.
He is, but again, Busy Bone's very Tupac, Kanye, Mahbod like.
Busy Bone's crazy, Yeah, I mean, Crazy's been such a good friend to me. He even had me on his podcast, but I've always wanted to meet Busy Bone. I just think that because he raps the fastest too. So
yeah, I think a lot of that's like his pitch. He sounds the most different from everybody, but Crazy's flow and his flow is flawless. Like, he has a beautiful flow.
Lazy and Crazy started it. The other people, so Busy was an add-on. Everyone else was an add-on.
Okay. And I from what I understand, Crazy and Wish were friends, right? And Lazy and Flesh are brothers.
Oh, okay. All right. That I didn't know.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. I always felt like, without them even saying it, it always felt like Lazy was kind of the de facto leader or something. Yeah, but that makes sense that he started it.
Yeah, he did start it. But Crazy Bone is very religious. That's one. I don't think the other people in Bone Thugs were religious. But yeah, like Busy Bone was, I mean, now you're telling me that everyone else was connected except for Busy. He was basically the outsider. And they're like, okay, we need you in our group because you rap so fast.
Right.
And it's like, dude, the reason why you rap so fast is because you're crazy.
I think Lazy knew Busy, I believe. You know, it's been a long time since I've done my bone knowledge, but yeah, I believe that's what it was. But all right, before we get out of here, what do you have coming up, or what's something that you want to leave the people with?
Today I'm paying my taxes, but I'm trying to survive. Like I'm surviving right now because of I invest in cryptocurrency and stuff. I'm okay, but I would love to have a job. If anyone wants to hire me, hit me up. If anyone knows how to code and they want to build communist Instagram, take down Facebook, end poverty, hit me up. But yeah, basically I'm just chilling. I'm trying to plot and scheme my next move, but my dream is I want to see poverty end in my lifetime. I think with the internet has given us the power to make it so that no one has to be homeless or hungry. So we need to make that happen. There was a guy who really wanted that to happen named Jesus. I think Kanye and Crazy Bone and a lot of these rappers are big fans of his. So let's bring his vision to life.
Most definitely. That's a great way to end off. Appreciate you coming through.